found us. This is Ominously Positive Podcast, and today we are talking about the case of Aubrey Dameron, the girl who vanished at 3 a.m. and the authorities who seem a bit slow to give their support. I would like to go through my disclaimers real quick. I always ask for sensitivity about the cases that we talk about, but you guys are pretty awesome, so I don't feel like I need to ask that very often, but just in case, yeah, please be kind. Don't send hate to anybody that we do talk about, and my research is based on publicly available information, and everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Therefore, I and we cannot be accusing anyone of anything. You've asked for content ratings in the past in case you want to Google this case. This case, if you Google it, does not have graphic images. However, I will say that you might encounter some hateful content by people about the victim. So here are today's themes in case that you need to bounce from this case. I totally understand if that is you. So this case is going to cover missing, murdered, and Indigenous women, transgender / two spirits, and all of the rainbow family. Hate, there's going to be hate mentioned in this case. Briefly, brief mention of drugs, brief mention of bullying, and of course the implications of what this vanishing might mean. If you cannot handle this, like I said, I totally understand, and I will see you on the next case. Mwah. If you would like to further deep dive into this case, please check out my written work. It'll be on my blog or somewhere like that. The links are always in like the link tree or something. Check the description or the banner for that. And lastly, before we start digging right into the story, is that I ask for the intercession of Santa Muerte on behalf of Aubrey Dameron. Amen. Aubrey Dameron, also known as Shorty, she had a few variants of her full name. She was about 25 years old, and she was a Cherokee Nation citizen. Dameron was two-spirit, and she had started transitioning in about high school. Her whole story about her transition actually can be found on her Facebook. It is an intense listen to because you're listening from her words specifically, but I've also documented it in my blog. So if that's something that interests you, I would go check it out. Unfortunately, she was not well received by her community or even her family. Dameron was bullied in her own church, and as a testament of the kind of person that she is, instead of retaliating and getting angry with them, she would pray for her tormentors, and she continued going to church despite the bullying. She was also bullied in school, and she was forced to leave eventually because they said that her transitioning was a distraction. She was able to repair some of these strained relationships that had happened because of her choice to transition. Again, this is, don't come at me for the wording, it's just, I'm just talking. I know that we are born the way we are, so, choice is subjective here. But she was able to repair these relationships over time, and she did grow close to some of her family. There were a few that she grew closer to than most, and that would be Christian Fencer, who is her uncle, but also the same age, and they shared a lot of the same experiences. Like, he was bullied alongside with her, and he came out as gay. So they both kind of shared some experience there together. And then Aunt Pat Smith, who just loved Dameron as one of her own kids. So Dameron seemed to, just continuing the talk about her personality, she was the kind of person who was really bubbly, but when it came down to it, she came and she fought for the underdogs, and she really just had a kinship for anybody that was just outcast. So she would want to stop and listen and try to give them encouragement. People always describe her, when I'm reading about her, as someone who goes out of their way to help others. And of course, I've mentioned this before, but very bubbly, very performative. She liked to perform. I would encourage you to look her up on Facebook. She is a striking lady, so it'd be good to memorize her face and also just to kind of get to know her a bit, because the things that she had to share can be helpful to you, especially if you are in the rainbow family. I believe that those experiences that she has lived through can help you too. So if you can handle it mentally and in your heart, I would definitely go look up her Facebook and get to know her a little bit. So she had lived with her boyfriend in New Mexico but returned to the family home in Grove, Oklahoma. And this was around August 2018. The reason why she came home is unclear. The boyfriend said, oh, she just wanted to go back to her old lifestyle of drug using. And then her family says, well, actually, she said that she was scared of her boyfriend. So what the reason is, we don't know. Pardon. Both her uncle and her aunt thought that moving back home was a bad choice, and they were pretty upfront in just saying that Dameron's brother, stepfather, and mother, who all lived in the same house that she had moved back into, suffered from methamphetamine use disorder. After the move, her family noticed that she started retreating into a shell, and she went from being really out there to slowly shrinking in her social media presence, and she just didn't reach out to her friends and family like she used to. I have a quote here for you. Quote, "No one can verify they saw her in the last few weeks before March 9th, Fencer said. Dameron was either being reclusive or the dates provided were not correct." So just keep this in mind. Because now we're rolling up on the night where everything goes down, allegedly. It's March 3rd, 2019 at 3:30 in the morning. And this is the last night she was allegedly seen, and her mother had seen her. Possibly her brother as well. Dameron's mother gives us a detailed account of what she was wearing. She left the house on foot in all black, wearing a leather jacket, skirt, netting hose with heeled boots. Dameron left on foot, I've said that before. And she was last seen in the gravel drive of her rural home. I think it's important to emphasize the rural because we all know, like, if you live in the country, where are you going in the middle of the night? You wouldn't just take off. There's nowhere to go, and it's dangerous, you know. That being said, a few yards away from her house is a trailer park, and that is actually where her cell phone was last pinged. So the phone was either switched off at that point or died. And I believe, if I remember right, the last ping was a text message. She had left her purse, her life-saving medication, and a cell phone at home, but since they said that her cell phone pinged at a trailer park, I am not sure what that means. Nobody has clarified it. I don't know if that means she had multiple cell phones or if this is an overlooked piece of information. So it's a small little tip, but I will be turning that in, this small tiny tip, just in case it got overlooked, because you never know. So, because I have quotes from people saying later, yes, she left her phone at home. Yes, she left her phone at home, but then her phone pinged at a different location, and nobody has clarified if she had multiple phones. And if she did have multiple phones, maybe that could help too. Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. I'm going to come back here a little bit. Right before that, she was messaging people on Facebook for rides, but it's unclear if anybody ever responded or came and took her up on the offer. So, the information and timeline surrounding Dameron's disappearance, as you can kind of see, is a little inconsistent, at least to the point that Smith and Fencer were suspicious. So, I don't think that what they were told is what's true. March 11th, she's officially reported missing at this point, but it's actually a little unclear on who officially reported her missing. Some reports will say her mom, some reports actually say her brother's girlfriend or something along those lines. March 12th, a weird event happens, and a friend of hers, and I'm going to put this in quote, friend, becomes involved in a scheme. This friend calls Dameron's ex-boyfriend, who's in Colorado at this point, and tells him that Dameron was kidnapped and there's a ransom, and she'll offer a little bit of her own money to help get her friend out of the trouble. Anyways, the authorities get involved. This friend gets arrested for extortion, and she's charged with it too. This friend goes on record saying she really didn't think that Dameron was actually missing. She thought, quote, trying to do whatever to get her man back, unquote, is what she really thought. Like, she really thought her friend was safe. I do want to say, in reading some articles and in her own quotes, this friend did not use Dameron's proper gender pronouns. She used a previous pronoun, and Dameron had been transitioned for some time after this. So I thought that was really odd that she didn't acknowledge, if they were such good friends, that she didn't even acknowledge her friend's gender. So I thought that was weird. Apparently this friend also said that they had spent 5 days together in December, and Dameron had gone no contact with her family. So I guess she was kind of implying like she's done this before or something along those lines. So, moving into the rest of the timeline, it's around the 16th and the 18th that Smith and Fencer are actually finally informed about Dameron's disappearance. You know, the people that she's really close with, they just now find out. So, quote, the way we found out was a friend of mine had messaged me on social media and asked me if she was missing, said Smith. Smith had to call the county sheriff's office, the DCSO, to confirm the disappearance of the situation. After the confirmation, the authorities try to throw her back over to Dameron's mother's and was like, you need to talk to her for the details. And then Smith herself started to notice that the details and the stories around this whole disappearance were all very inconsistent. So they, both Fencer and Smith, are starting to feel like and wonder if their own family wasn't involved. Quote, I want to say no and believe in the no, Fencer said. I can't say without giving Dameron's mother's information the benefit of the doubt. So, Fencer went on. After this point, he went and visited the family home where Dameron had lived. And while he was there, he noticed that all of her belongings had been packed up and into boxes. When he asked about this, he was told by her mom that Dameron herself had done it when she was looking for a bottle of nail polish. Smith worried that because Dameron had epilepsy, she had left behind those life-saving medications in her purse and a cell phone. So to him, this is indicating a serious situation here. From here, Smith and Fencer just go on a campaign to try and help, but it's very slow work, not for lack of effort on their part. They are really, really trying. They're still really, really trying. It, quote, it just seemed like no one cared, said Smith, and that they felt the authorities blamed Aubrey's high-risk lifestyle for her disappearance. I like how it said, felt like the authorities, when the authorities just flat out said it. So, I think there's a quote later in one of these interviews with one of these police officers, and he's like, yeah, her lifestyle, or something like that. I'll find that quote for you in a bit. Anyways, the family has done just about everything at this point. They've done the flyers, they've done the personally funded searches, they've been calling, they've been doing the repetition to try to get notice. They're trying to get help pretty much from anyone. The locals are hateful. They would rip down flyers and they would post slurs on social media. They did the family did a silent auction, and people showed up, but those people, they just wanted to gossip. They didn't actually want to help. So that kind of sucks. Dameron had sightings all over the place in that area, some as far away as Missouri, I think. But none of those sightings panned out. So there was a lot of rumors going around, lots of stories, but nothing substantial. More people are getting involved in the case now, like the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations. There's like a small side story to this where they tried to have a bill passed in Dameron's name, and then it was sidetracked because she was transgender, and a whole bunch of other crap that went with that. So if you want to check that out, check out the blog. I'm not gonna waste time on the storyline here for you now though. So, and the same thing for these searches, and there's a lot of details in this timeline that I think would benefit from you if you want to try to sit down and really look at what's going on. So anyways, the family does these private searches, and they have to get help from outside organizations to help them with this, because the law enforcement doesn't. They don't help at first. They find evidence. They found big red flags. But every time they turn in this evidence, nothing conclusive comes back from it. Interestingly so. Like, I feel like, I don't know, I shouldn't say what I want to say here, but just make your own choice. They would find something, they would turn it in to the proper authorities, and then nothing came back, or it would be inconclusive. So, like, here's a good example. At one point, they're doing these searches. They find something, they call law enforcement. They ask them to come out so they can come look at what they found, and they tell them, why? We're not doing the search. Why? So, yeah. Law enforcement does eventually come in and do some searches, but then when they do the searches, they find barely anything at all. So, the case dwindles. It's dwindling. There's very little out there right now. If you go to their Facebook page, you can stay up on top of all the information that's there. It's not from the lack of effort on the family's part. They are still working as hard as they can to keep her story in the public, to keep trying to dredge up any sort of information. They are still putting pressure on the, investigating people. They're trying every single thing that they can. So if that talks to your heart, go try and help them. What you can do is quite simply share information they want you to share. So if you go to the Aubrey Dameron's Facebook page, you would be able to, not her personal one, but the one the family made, you can see like flyers that they're making, share them. Especially if you're in the Missouri or Oklahoma area, share those flyers. Since we don't have answers, look at her face. Try to remember seeing her somewhere, or keep an eye out if you were in this area to look for her. Share her family's flyers. It's going to be really, really important. And lastly, if you do have a tip and you're listening to my tiny little podcast about this, and you're kind of feeling a little bit on the edge of your seat, like, gosh, should I turn this tip in or something like that? Yes, do it. You can turn tips in anonymously. My favorite one is Crime Stoppers. You can totally turn a tip in anonymously through Crime Stoppers. Turn on your VPN, go to Crime Stoppers, go to the area that you are turning your tip in, click the anonymous tip. You can call anonymously, or you can write them and send in the tip. If you want to follow up on it, you can write down the password and stuff like that and check in on it later. Or you can just throw that away and you will never ever hear about it again. So if you are kind of on the edge of your seat with a tip, I highly encourage you to do this. So, I mean, what could it hurt you? If you turn in a tip anonymously and you don't give any information about yourself, how is this going to hurt you? You'll help a family, okay? All right. Well, I love you guys. Thank you for listening. Sorry this took forever to get out there. This is one of those ones that, like my OCD was saying, like, every time I wanted to post this story, I'd be like, oh, I missed something. I'm still doing it, but I'm going to force myself to post it. So if you see me come back in a few days and I'm, like, updating, I guess you know why. But yeah, I want to take Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for putting up with me with my slow posting. There's always stuff going behind the scenes for me. Like, I'm working on some non-disclosure things that I can't talk about. I've got a few of them, so it's kind of unfortunate because I can't share that with you, and then you don't get content because I'm working on this. But I kind of think that's more my calling. I kind of feel like I'm definitely more of a ghostwriter sort of person where I can gather info and other people can use it for things. So if you're listening to my podcast and you're a content creator and you're thinking, gosh, I can do better than her when it comes to making a story, do it. Go by blog, take the info. It'd be nice if you gave me credit, but if you don't, that's okay. And make some stuff. Seriously. Please do it ethically. Please do it ethically. Please, please, please. We need more good people in the true crime world. I would appreciate it. So, thanks. Okay, as far as personal stuff, well, there's been some changes in my life. Like, my kids are going to school, so I'm kind of sad, and a little bored, and a little lonely. So we're gonna adopt a new puppy, and yeah, I'm gonna get back into writing more, making more content, because now I have time. But in the meantime, I'm gonna kind of like refill my cup a little bit. Like, I've been playing Minecraft a lot, and kind of exploring fashion a little bit, which has been really fun. So yeah, that's all that's been going on. Okay, I love you guys. I will stop jabbering. Mwah, mwah, mwah.